afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and you are attending the Happy Holidays December version of the Attorney Computer Systems Tabs3 Virtual User Group. I should say the 2014, in case some of you are confused about what year it is right now. We are at the December 2014 Tabs3 Virtual User Group meeting. And today we are talking about, what are we talking about, Mary Jo? We just talked about what we were talking about. We're talking about the 3 payment allocation reports. Mary Jo is going to cover that topic. And I am talking about creating an administrative account in trust accounting to handle those extra things that might pop into the account. But before we do that, let's talk about this. This is our GoToWebinar control panel. You might be looking at this right now. Hold on a second. Mary Jo says you can't see the GoToWebinar control panel because I have not shown my screen. There we go. This is the GoToWebinar control panel. And if you are still looking at that, it means that you have not pressed this button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, because had you pressed that button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, this would have slid off the right-hand side of your screen. The button will then turn into one that points to the left, an arrow that points to the left, and clicking that again will cause this big box to slide back onto your screen, so that if you're shy and you have a question, you can type it right here. You can remember to hit send, and Leanne, our humble and futuristic moderator, will recognize that you have a question. I must pause and explain that Leanne has come into the 21st century. She has her first smartphone. We're very proud of her. She's got an iPhone 6. We were teasing her at lunch because she, up until this moment in time, was known as that mom that has a 20-year-old cell phone. So welcome to the 21st century, Leanne. Leanne will recognize that you have a question. She will interrupt Mary Jo or myself at the opportune time, and she will ask your question on your behalf. If you have follow-up questions, if I'm rambling needlessly, if we're going off track and not answering the question that you think we should be answering or that you meant to ask, just keep typing here, keep remembering to hit send, and Leanne will act as your liaison to keep us on track or to make sure that your question gets answered. If you are not feeling shy, you can also press this button. It looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upward in front of it. It means raise your hand. If you do that, Leanne will once again recognize that you have a question. She will once again interrupt Mary Jo or myself at the opportune time, but instead of reading your question, she will simply unmute your microphone and let you ask your own damn question. So remember, that channel of communication will remain open during the answering of your question. So you will be involved in a conversation with myself or Mary Jo. So just jump right in. If we're getting off track, just jump right in. If you have a follow-up question, make sure you get your question answered, and then when you're done, Leanne will mute you back up. Remember, no Fritos, no Doritos while your microphone is open, please. So without further ado, I'm going to press this magic button and this magic button, and oh, that was the wrong magic button. And I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to leave Mary Jo right here on the main screen so that she can talk about the 3 payment allocation reports in Tabs 3.
I want some of those magic buttons, I think. Here.
We're selling them. We're having special today.
All right.
3 for $1.
All right. So I'm going to continue the report series here, and we're going to talk about some more of the management reports. We've talked about the cash receipts report. Today we're going to tackle the allocated payments, the unallocated payments, and the receipt allocation report, and why these might be helpful for you and when you would run them and all of that good stuff. So we're just going to break these down for each report, tell you what's in them and how to run them. And so we'll start with the allocated payments report. This is going to show you all of the payments and when they actually allocated and to who. So this is between this and the receipt allocation, this is just the down and dirty, we call it. This is going to give you the basic information and give you a report that's going to spit it out here. So the first screen is like all of our reports. We've talked about these different options that you have, that you can select different locations, inactive and active, close dates, ranges of clients or attorneys, all of the ranges of clients, all kinds of things in here that you can do for all of our Tabs3 reports. But where we're going to focus more on today is the Options tab. And I'm clicking, but I'm not getting anything. I'm serious. I can't. Did you give me keyboard and mouse? There we go.
Oh, there we go.
All right. So on the Options tab, we have the report date, and that doesn't change anything when you're running. This is just a date you're running the report, so it always defaults to today. Now we're in sample data, so of course we've got November 17th of 2014. So this is not today, but in our sample data it is. This would default to today for you. You've got your criteria page, and that's, again, the same in all of our reports. It gives you that little end page that spits out all the parameters that you chose for this particular running of the report. Where we're going to focus is on this payment allocation date. This is going to be the beginning and ending date of when the payment actually allocated. It may or may not be the same as the actual transaction date of the payment, just depending on when that statement was updated, when that payment was actually allocated. So this is going to be that date range. The type is you have a detail or a summary, and this is one of the reports that will include the fee compensation amounts. The receipt allocation report also will include the fee compensation amount breakdown. So if you're using fee compensation rules, this is a report that will include that information. I'll run it once without it, and I'll run it once with it so you can see the difference. On the Sort tab, again, you've got your regular sort order. We cannot sort this one by working timekeeper. On this report, it's only by primary, secondary, originating category, or none. We can uncheck our same parameters here. We can do totals only. We can do grand totals, any of these things that we want to do, subtotal by client, and so on.
Now, these are the things that you covered when we first started doing this report.
It is.
So if you want, go back a couple months in the archives, and you can learn all about the intricacies of this sort screen and the client screen up on the other side.
Right, and then also how to save and load those parameters that you saved. That's all in that prior webinar that we've done. So I'm just going to run it. I'm just going to say by none. I don't really need to do it by any attorney for our sample. And I'm going to do grand total. So it's going to give me each client and then a grand total. So we'll say OK, and we'll preview this. And now we're going to get all of the payments that came in, and for each client, what the date they came in, whether or not it's been included on a bill. If it says archived, that means it's been on a bill. If it's still out here, it's a WIP payment. What statement it applied to, the payment amount, how much was actually allocated. In this case, in my example, this first client, everything was allocated. It will also tell you whether or not it was expenses or advances or fees. Any of those things will all be on here. Finance charge. Now, what I want to show you with the fee comp rules is if there were, this report right now that I just ran does not include fee comp rules, but it is still breaking down by working timekeeper how that allocated. You see it over here in this grayed out area. So even though a payment of $267 came in, I can see that Michael Jensen earned 17 of that, and Paula Ann got 250. So it is still breaking that down by working timekeeper, and if I scroll down to the end of the report with my grand totals, it will still give me a total for each timekeeper here. So I would still see the total amounts coming in for each of those timekeepers, even though I'm not sorting by working timekeeper. I also can see my unallocated payments, payments that have been, those are like your credit balances that have not been applied to a statement yet. You might have WIP sitting out there, but you haven't updated a statement, so it still doesn't know how to apply those payments. We'll talk more about that when we talk about the unallocated payments report, but it does show on this report as well. Now I'm going to run it with the fee comp rules included, just to show you the difference on how those show up in my breakdown. When I look at this, some of these clients have fee comp rules set up, and now I see, well, here's how it came in if they were just the regular timekeeper, but here's how the originating, where these particular ones are broken down, our fee comp rules are set up for originating timekeeper, and I'm sure that Michael Jensen gets a certain percentage, and this RPA gets a certain percentage of all the time that comes in, and this is where it's going to show you what that time is. So I see what I saw in the first report without the fee comp rules, but then I also see the percentages of that amount. Now I'm going to scroll down a little bit further and find another client. Here's one that also has an originating for PAM. This is her amount that she would get of the total payment, and then the firm is also getting a percentage because you can break down what portion goes to the firm. Again, up here, there's another example. So this is a report that will tell me all of that. And again, if I scroll down to the bottom, since I'm doing my grand totals, I also see all of the percentages for each one of those attorneys and their amounts that are due to them based on what those fee comp rules were set up for each client. So this is included on that the allocated payments report. You can see I don't have much other detail. This is just really, basic stuff. I don't have a lot of parameters to choose, but this gives me the down and dirty, like I said, just what came in and how it allocated to who. It also has a summary version, and again, based on what your sort is, you may or may not want to include all the different things. This one's just going to give me just some basics, and I'll show you this. So this is going to just tell me by client. I'm not going to get all that detail on there. I'm just getting the summary. And you can also see that on this one, it does not break it down by timekeeper, and it does not give me those fee comp rules on the summary view. But on my detail view, it does. So that is the allocated payments report. Now I'm going to jump to the receipt allocation because they are so similar, and then we'll come back to the unallocated. The receipt allocation report is, again, very similar, and it's going to give me the same information, but it's also going to give me a few more parameters to run. So again, I still have my basic screen at the beginning, but on my options tab, I now have a lot more things that I can choose. So I still have a detail, and I can still include my fee comp amounts, but I've got some different options here for my print. I can print the unallocated payments or not. I can do only clients with receipts or only clients that have unallocated payments. So this is just a new option here. I also can compare two different periods. Most of the time when I run this, I'm just running it for one period. I just change this one over here to none, and I'm just running it for one period. But sometimes you want to see, I want to know what my current year receipt allocation breakdown is compared to my last year's, or this month compared to last month. There's just some different things here that you can show on there, and it can show percentages and the differences in that amount that you had for those two periods. A lot of people don't understand what these two things are and what they should put here. But this is always going to be the main part of the report, and then what do you want to compare it to? You also have options here to include working timekeeper. So we can say I only want to see the time or the receipt allocations for timekeeper number 1, and I can include that expense, advance, finance charge, and timekeeper information breakdown for each of those on this report. So again, just a few more parameters here that I can choose from. On the Format tab, again, I have more columns I can include or exclude. So I can say I want to see billed hours or amount or write-offs or receipts or their effective rate or what's uncollected so far, and even what the current amount due is. So again, just a few more extras in this report. The sort also gives me a lot more options on my secondary order. My report order and totals are the same, but my secondary order, I could say I want it by primary timekeeper, but then I also want it by billed amount or by billed hours or whatever that may be. You have a lot more flexibility again. So again, I'm just going to do mine just to compare apples to apples. I'm just going to go over here, and I'm going to just do my grand totals and run the receipt allocation. So here you can see the breakdown is a little bit different. Now I've got some timekeeper information here, and then I have my columns for what I have for receipts and so on. So I'm going to scroll down here just a little bit further and just look at here's my fee comp rules, so I can see the difference between the firm, primary, originating, and so on of what my breakdowns are. It's a completely different layout. Depending on what columns I pick will also depend on, if I had those percentages or other options selected, I'd have another column for that. Just a totally different view of how the information comes out. So it's really a preference on, do you want the down and dirty, I just want to see all this, or do I want just some columns here that just have some information. And again, when I do my grand totals, it will give me those totals at the end of the report for each timekeeper and then each fee comp breakdown. And then I also get the total fees, total expenses, and in this case it's even breaking down further so I know what types of expenses I had or advances that I had. And this report also can include those unallocated payments. So that's the difference in the detail receipt allocation and then just the allocated payments report. Both reports are good, and both reports give you some great information. It's just how do you want to see it.
I like to say that the receipt allocation is kind of an attorney report because it has so many other things, the worked hours, the billed hours, And like Mary Jo says, the other one's the down and dirty report. That's what the people that are working in the trenches in accounting want to look at, because they're mainly looking at the payments, not how it breaks down.
So that leaves us with the unallocated payments. And this is what causes the most confusion, I would say, for our clients. What is unallocated payments? How do they get there? How do I get rid of them? Why do I have unallocated payments? So the first thing to discuss is, how do you get them? And normally it's when you get a payment in that's more than what is due for that client. So you have a client that has $500 due and they give you a $1,000 check, and you put that $1,000 in and it leaves that negative $500 that's due. You have not billed for that. You don't know what that is yet, and neither does Tabs. Tabs just sees that you have $500 and it doesn't know how that's going to break down because there's no statement to correspond that says it's due. So that $500 sits out there, and if you're integrating with our general ledger, it sits in a special unallocated payments account until you bill for that time. As soon as you bill for that time, it pulls it out of that unallocated account, it puts it into the proper fee or cost account that is corresponding to that client, and it's posted. It's automatic. You don't have to worry about it. But sometimes we get some unallocated payments in there, and we don't know why or how they got there. And this report is a good one to start monitoring that. So we can do the report and find out which clients have negative balances and why, because we really don't want credit balances sitting out there for clients. Occasionally you might have one that, yes, you do want it in there, and it's going to, you know you're billing for it next week, and it's purposely put in there. You know that this is going to be something that's going to wash out here in a week or two. Others have been sitting in there for years, and you don't know why you have this negative balance. It could be because you entered this credit or has got a settlement in and you've never billed for that time. And just to clear it out, you're just going to run a statement. You need to put some kind of attorney fees or costs or something in there to bill that time, final bill, and update the statement. It will automatically take care of itself, take it off the unallocated report, and it will put it into the correct fee income account. So I'm going to look at this so we can figure out how to do it. So this is the first place to start if you want to know, do we have unallocated, and why do these keep showing up on all my reports? Again, I'm just going to leave everything blank. My options tab is very brief and to the point. I want to see a payment date, or if I just leave it blank, I'm going to see everything. So I want to see all of the unallocated that I have out here so I can see whether or not they're legitimately unallocated, or do I need to clean these up. On the sort tab, I'm going to go back to my none and my grand totals. Say OK, and I'll preview. And this one's going to show me a list of which clients are in here, how much the original payment amount was, and how much of that was unallocated. If this were split, let's say that part of that payment was allocated but part of it was not, this would actually show the total amount of the payment, and maybe only 500 of it was still unallocated. So this could match, like in my case it does, everything that's come in, we just have not billed anything for this. Or it could be a payment amount higher than what was actually due, and this column is going to show me what that credit balance is. We can, that's going to just give you a starting place. There's lots of ways, depending on the situation, to clean that up. Sometimes it's as simple as just billing. Sometimes it's a negative positive thing. Back in the day, before we had just one payment code, we had fee payment codes and cost payment codes, and people would maybe get a payment in, and they would just put it to fees, when in reality part of that payment was supposed to be cost. And so instead of it creating a payment that was splitting it with fees and costs like we do now with our payment code, it would put all of it to fees and leave a credit balance on the fee side, but a negative or a amount due on the cost side. So you would get these instances where you had something that was unallocated even though the client had a zero balance. So there's ways to clean those up as well. So as a starting point, if you've never ran this report before, I would run it and see what's on it, and then kind of look through these clients. And when I look at this one, I see this mega construction with $20,000 as a credit, and I think either they have a really big retainer that they got in, and we just, it should have went into trust or client funds, or this was a settlement. And a settlement you might not ever prepare bills for, but you put in a payment received from that client. And so to clear that out, I would just prepare a bill. I would put in a fee for, attorney fees for $20,000, final bill, and update it, and that would clear it out. So there's a lot of different things there that we can talk about if you have further questions or want to get into more details, but this is the place to start when you just run that. So that's my 3 reports. These unallocated payments, they do show on the receipt allocation and on the Allocated Payments report. They also show on some other reports. You might see them on your AR reports or some different things. So keep that in mind, and that's where you can find out your list here. I think that's all I have to cover, Paul.
Is that all you have to cover?
I think I took a while this time. So
well, that's all
your
right,
turn.
because what I get to talk about is very simple in nature, but I want to talk first about why. I'm talking about what to do to create an administrative account in your trust account. Something to hold those charges that may come into your trust account and need a place to live. What kind of charges would those be? Well, maybe you get interest that gets taken out in 1 month and put back immediately after, but it's the next month. It's the next day, but it's also the next month. You need a place to hold that transaction until that washes through. Or maybe when you order checks for your trust account, maybe they get paid for with a debit to the with a transaction that's going to come out of your checking account, and you need to account for that. Some firms like to have a floater sort of amount in there. They'd like to have a bit of padding in their trust account, so they'll just put in an extra $5,000 or $500 into their trust account, and they need a place to hold that so that they can account against it. They need to know that that $500 really belongs to the firm, but it's there in case something weird happens and they need that float. They need that cushion, if you will. So this trust administrative account that you're going to set up in your trust accounting system is really just a place to hold those things that you're really probably going to wash through. For instance, if the check, if you get checks and they charge $50 to your trust account to print the checks, you're going to have to put that money back in because you can't take it out of somebody's trust account. But until you do, you need a place for that transaction to live, and then you need something to post that redeposited money against. Same thing with the interest that comes out and then comes right back in. You need a place for it to live while it's out, if you will. Or if you've put in that extra cushion, if you've got that $500 extra in there, you need a place for that to live. It doesn't belong to Mrs. Smith and her matter, and it doesn't belong to Mega Construction Corp., which also has a trust account. It needs a place to live. So really, quite frankly, setting up a trust account is very simple. If we go to the trust account section, or icon, and enter a number. Now I recommend, Mary Jo recommends, she recommended to me, so I'm recommending to you, that you use the very first number. So if you start your clients at client number 100 or at 1,000 or whatever, use number 1 if it's available. Or if you have like a firm account or a group of matters in tabs that are for the firm, like maybe they're 101.01.02.03, maybe use .99 to be the administrative account in the trust account system. Now, when I go ahead and hit tab here, I already have one. So I have put the Fed ID in. Mary Jo recommends usually that you put the firm name here, Mary Jo, and that you put administrative account down here. This is sample data, so we just went ahead and let it go to what they had it already set up as. But she recommends the firm name here and administrative account here. You can give it whatever name search you want. That's just when you're entering a transaction. It's what you can type if you don't want to type the number to pull up that account. And that's really it. I mean, quite frankly, you can see what the balance is. So you can see, obviously, unless you have that float, this balance should always be at 0 or it should be headed to 0. In other words, if it's got a negative $50 balance because they just took the amount out for the checks, then you should be working to get that $50 back in there so that the trust account is whole, if you will. And then if we go over here.
Before you go there, Paul, just one quick thing. When you open that trust account in Trust, it's also going to enter that into Tabs. It's going to open a client in Tabs. So if you've already got a client in Tabs for an admin account, you can just come over here and use that same number. You don't have to create a new one, but just understand it will be in both programs.
Yes, if you're creating a brand new one, everything in Trust correlates with a matter in Tabs, obviously. If you're using Trust, you know that. And so it will, when you create this administrative account, also create a matter over on the other side in Tabs. Now, if we go over here, of course, then this is where you will see those trust transactions. So if we pull up that one, and by the way, this is where you would type that name search. If you instead typed admin, I believe was the name search, it'll put that one in. That's just like a name search when you set up a matter in Tabs, just an alphanumeric representation or a character-based representation of that number. You'll see the transactions that we've got in here, and obviously in our sample data they're pretty much interest related, because that's mainly what you're accounting for in the trust account. If there is interest being accumulated, it has to go somewhere, and then you need to have some place to take it out of when you put it wherever you do by getting it out of the trust account. And so that's that. That's really all there is to it. We just wanted to kind of talk about why you would have that, give some examples of what the transactions are that would cause you to need that, and show those people that may not have one how to set one up.
One other thing, too, is you would need one of these admin accounts for each bank account that you have.
Oh,
so
good point.
If you've got 10 trust accounts, and you laugh, but I have clients that actually have more than that, different trust bank accounts, you'll need to set up an admin account for each one.
Good. Now, Mary Jo, do you remember what I said when I was writing down the order of what we were doing things? I said I was going to mention version 15 sunsetting twice. I didn't do it. So you'll have to excuse me. Maybe I'll remember to do this in 2015. That will be my New Year's resolution. If you have version 15, you are in possession of software that will be quote-unquote sunsetted in June of 2015. What does that mean? Will it stop working? No. Will it stop doing everything that you've always wanted it to do? Well, if you're still using it, it must be doing everything you want it to do, so don't worry about that. What will happen, though, is STI won't support it anymore. So if you call in for support, they won't be able to help you after June 2015, because, you know, you got to understand that these kids that they hire to be on in support, even the ones that have been there 5-6 years, they weren't there when version 15 was released. So eventually they have to sunset a product. And we're currently on version 17.1. 18 has got to be coming out sometime in 2015. So it's time to sunset version 15. It also means that at some point, usually not immediately, in fact, I think we still have access to these things for version 14, but at some point, the ability to self-update will go away. And by that I mean, without sending your data to STI and paying them a fee, you won't be able to get up from version 15 to the latest version come some point. It won't be immediately, but that's part of sunsetting as well. So keep that in mind. If you have version 15, you'd want to think about getting up to the latest version before that gets sunsetted. Next month, we are talking about renumbering, and you can renumber a number of things in Tabs. You know, timekeepers, matters, when would you want to do it, why would you want to do it, how do you do it? We're going to talk about all those things. That's going to be my topic. And Mary Jo is going to continue in her quest to cover every single report in Tabs with the inactivity report. And so while we're talking about topics, let's go over here, just so you know. Now, if you're listening to this recorded, then you already know this because this is where you found it. But if you go to our website, which is www.attorneycomputersystems.com, then you will notice as we scroll down that we have a section on our website for the virtual user group meetings, all 3 of them. We have a WorldDocs VUG, a Practice Master VUG, and you are currently attending the Tabs 3 VUG. And if you click on that, one of those VUG sections, you'll be taken to a page that has at the top registration information for the next virtual user group meeting, which this happens to be the one we're listening to right now. And as you scroll down beyond that, you will find recorded versions of every other VUG that we did in that topic since we started recording. And gosh, Mary Jo, how long has it been? 4 years now that we've been recording these virtual user group meetings. So there's a lot of neat stuff in there. And you should take advantage of that. We also have our Coffee Pot webinar series, which is something I do on one Friday of each month, usually talking about something that you can do extra in a program or some extra add-on that you can purchase to give it some more functionality. eBytes video series, that's Mary Jo's series on very, very short, concise 2, 3, 4, 5-minute videos on a very specific topic. And she records one of those each month for Tabs, WorldDocs, and Practice Master. And then we have our larger format, longer format, Paul and Mary Jo show, where Mary Jo and I will take a specific topic and delve in great detail into it. Usually these are 15, 20 minutes long. So please take advantage of all these things. We didn't record them just so that we'd be famous. We recorded them so that you could use them. Everybody have a good rest of the day, good rest of the month, good rest of the year. Boy, this is exciting. Happy holidays, everyone, and we will see you in 2015.